For one thing, foreign blood doesn't mix well with our people's blood. Our American women's bodies naturally reject foreign genetics. It was in the 1940s, if I recall correctly, they developed a shot called Rogam. A lot of foreigners, they carry RH blood.
Mm. Mm.
Now, next to that is, I can only speak for myself, and I can speak in regards to people I've assisted with their genealogy. Myself and many others in which I work with, we are of mixed Aboriginal American Indian nations.
Okay.
Through my genealogy, I count at least 6. You see? And then we factor in our ancestors have had long relations throughout these Americas. But now I want to jump to this definition over here. This is master and servant.
Okay.
It says an employer-employee relationship, and I believe this is from the Barron's Law Dictionary. Shout outs to Historyl. You can find him on Instagram. He shared this research, these quotes here, this particular citation, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, right, on Instagram. So master and servant, an employer-employee relationship. Key words here: master and servant. Employer is the master, servant being the employee. So once again, let's think about an indentured servant, right? Let's think about ownership of who you hired, right? Corporate policies, etc., right? Let's continue here. It says a relation that develops from an express or implied employment contract between a master or employer and the servant or employee. The servant is expected to perform services, usually for salary, and is under the master's control. While servant sometimes refers specifically to hired help in domestic matters, in its broadest sense, the term refers to a person of any rank or position who is subject to the control of another. Such a relationship is distinguished from that of an independent contractor, who is not under the employer's direct control, but serves the employer only as to the results of his work and not as to the method by which the work is done. Essentially, the power to control is the test in determining whether a master and servant relationship exists. The power to control. Okay?
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna fast forward a little bit in this. It says, under the master and servant relationship, the master will be liable for the actions of his servant committed while the servant was acting within the scope of his employment. Okay. So when we think about slavery, right, we're thinking about it from a foreign media manufactured standpoint.
Right.
Many people have not spoken to real life elders who can pass on the oral tradition, tell the true stories of what their ancestors told them in regards to seeing and knowing or experiencing slavery firsthand.
That's right.
And then on top of that, right, I shared some information. I put in a book also. And I did a presentation some years back. You have a book. It's titled Journey to Pennsylvania in the year 1750, right? Where here it is, you have this author who's writing from Germany, right? He traveled from Germany in the year 1750, and he left in 1754. And he's describing what he saw. Where here it is, you had Germans, you had people from Europe that were literally being kidnapped. In some instances, other people were being deceived into going to the Americas. On the ships, they would get robbed of all of their possessions.
Wow.
These European women, some of them was pregnant, and they couldn't. They give birth on a ship, and their baby dies, and oftentimes the woman dies too.
Wow.
And they're pushed through the portholes of the ship. We're talking about severe abuses before this ship even arrives to America, if it doesn't shipwreck en route to America from Europe, right? Now, next to that is this. They had to pay to get off the ship. If you could not pay to get off the ship, you was in debt, and as a result, you become a debt slave.
Right.
What would take place at this point now, as a debt slave, well, or someone who's in debt, it's documented you had men that were selling their women and their children into slavery to pay that debt.
Facts.
To get off the ship.
But y'all want to know the part that most people miss? Just real quick, Tony.
So
if these indentured servants, these debt slaves are coming to America, who do you think they're working for?
Hold on, my bad. I was reading some of the last comments in the chat. Say that one more time.
No, I was just asking the question to a lot of these debt servants that owed, that couldn't pay, and they had to work it off. What do they think a lot of them was working for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so I see here in the chat we have indigenous Akamak. They're asked, or they say here.